welcome to the Java Hour right here with Curious Sports Pulse. I'm pretty sure I just butchered the name to the own show, but that's okay. Either way, it doesn't matter. The Java Energy Hour. We are the number one show who says that they will last an hour, but in reality, it's probably going to be closer to 20 minutes. But the Java Energy 20-minute session just doesn't have that same ring to it, in my opinion. So hence we're stuck with the name. Pardon me. A lot of greatness going on here with Curious Sports Pulse. Check us out, CuriousSportsPulse.com. We have new people that are joining the team in some capacity or another here shortly. I'm excited. Old faces, new faces, people with better faces than mine. So I'm just really excited for that. In terms of today's show, we are going to. I have told you guys this from the get go. I am really excited for this WNBA season, and I love the product. And I've said more than once in terms of pure fundamental basketball, if that's what you're a fan of, just like how I'm a fan of Big Ten football, um, right? Run the damn ball. I like the WNBA product and everything that it has to offer. I really do. And this was before this incoming rookie class, but this incoming rookie class just has obviously amplified everything. And I do think it's appropriate to say this incoming rookie class as a whole has done so, but more on that in a moment. So we're going to discuss that. Um the Indiana Fever get their first win against Los Angeles Sparks. We're going to discuss that and why I still think Angel Reese is the number one and should be considered the number one contender for the WNBA Rookie of the Year. But first, let's stick to the men's side of things. At the NBA level, Luka Doncic is unbelievable. And I said on Scoutcast, shout out to E-Rock at Living Good 09. I said on his show on Scoutcast that it's going to be hard. I don't care how much more motivated or how much Anthony Edwards elects to dig in. It's going to be hard for this Minnesota Timberwolves team against the Dallas Mavericks this series. And you heard last night on the broadcast, I think it was either Kenny or Charles, or it could have been both, honestly, just playing off each other, where they said that this was a team, this was a series that favored Dallas, but had Denver and Dallas played, then that would have favored Denver. And I hear what they're saying. I think I disagree with that, but I hear what they're saying, and it makes sense. Either way, the point stands that this matchup really favors Dallas. And so, like I said on Scoutcast, I really don't care how much more motivated a team is at this point. Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving are matchup nightmares, regardless. But particularly for this Timberwolves team, you love how they can switch on defense 1 through 5. You love how they themselves can give you matchup nightmares, matchup concerns on the offensive end. But the strength of this T-Wolves defense is on the interior / inside the perimeter, especially when they can funnel someone toward Gobert. That's really what kind of unlocks everything that they're trying to do on defense. Individually, they are also good defenders, but this cannot be lost that if you had to pick a weakness, if you had to pick something to criticize, if you had to pick something that where you would say, they could probably improve this aspect, it's one-on-one ISO situations. Duh. That's everyone in the NBA. That's every team in the NBA. But particularly finding better ways to help their bigs on switches. So either by forcing the ball out of the other player's hand and then having good rotations on the back end to make up for it, or just doing more earlier in the play, earlier in the shot clock to fight over screens, for example, so that the switches aren't as easily to happen. So a lot was being said about, well, this shows how Rudy Gobert shouldn't have been the rookie or the defensive player of the year, how he was somewhat exposed, and how this would never happen to Wemby. And as a San Antonio Spurs fan, I 100% love that narrative. But I think that's incomplete at best. I mean, anyone is going to struggle one-on-one defending Kyrie Irving. Anyone is going to struggle one-on-one defending Luka Doncic, especially late. Everyone has been saying, who has liked the Mavericks to advance from this series, everyone has been saying that the thing to look for is late, and that Luka Doncic or Kyrie Irving can get whatever they want whenever they want. And if it comes down to a play or two, you know that they are at the very least going to give their team a great look. So, are you able to execute on your end to help prevent it from going to overtime, or to help prevent them from having that last second game winning shot? And credit to the Timberwolves, they got a great look from Naz Reid, who at the time was 7 of 8 from 3. That was a shot that was nearly made. So I don't even think that you can be too upset with that final look. And is the entire narrative changed if that final shot goes down? For some, it would have been, but I don't think it should be. I think this was just like what we said, two teams playing well. We're in the playoffs, two great teams. And you would have said, largely said, the Timberwolves, they got out to an early lead, but they kind of let Dallas back into it. And Mr. Jordan Ramos is here with us today. Let's see if we can get him on. But in the meantime, he says Minnesota going through the yearly sports teams, kicking them in the nuts. Oh my goodness! And he means, of course, macadamia nuts. I'm assuming, because that's or peanuts. That's what he had depicted there. Shout out to Jordan. Um, but so I don't even remember what I was saying. I love how I lost my train of thought, and I'm all for it. Thank you, Jordan. uh, Unofficially, I want to say, Jordan, while you're here, Jordan Unhinged needs to still be a thing, and maybe we can make that happen here on the Secure Sports Pulse Network. Jordan Unhinged will be my favorite thing about life when it happens. But Jordan, I'm gonna send you a message in the Twitter. If you're free, hop on. If not, no worries. But anyway, I forgot to send you a link earlier, so my bad. But anyway, this is why, though, I really liked the Dallas Mavericks before last night. And again, on the at Living Good 09 streamed Scoutcast, I I said it shouldn't be surprising if the series ends up being tied one apiece after game 2, but you would still then like for game 5 for Dallas to be up 3-1. And so then they would either seal it there or win it in game 6. I wouldn't see them losing 2 in a row at that point. So that is where I was standing this entire time. For Minnesota, they have a bad habit of letting teams creep back in, good teams letting them creep back in. And Dallas, to their credit, they do a good job of forcing the issue. And I would say, if it's within 20, the game is still within reach with this Dallas team. And now, this isn't a team that's had a lot of playoff years together, but this is a team that does have a lot of combined experience together. And I think that's what showed last night. So, long story short, if you have Luka Doncic, if you have Kyrie Irving largely ineffective through 3 quarters. I'm talking about offensively now, but he did force Anthony Edwards to have to use a gas mask, to use an oxygen mask early. So I was really impressed with Dallas, because not just game 1 and not just in game 2 because they won, but because they won while not necessarily playing their best. And that's what impressed me. And so look out if they really start to get things going, a sweep is 100% on the table, 100% a possibility. Now, do I think that more likely than not, Minnesota finds a way to win a game, possibly in Dallas? Probably just because it's hard. It's going to be hard for a conference finals when both teams are more or less as close to 100% as you can be to get swept. Shout out the Indiana Pacers, shout out the Boston Celtics, where that's clearly not the case. um, but this is why. This is why if you are giving me a chance of what I'm picking is more likely, I'm picking the Dallas Mavericks sweeping to be more likely than for sure Minnesota. I'm going to say even Minnesota winning 2 games. I think Dallas winning 4 in a row is more likely than Minnesota stealing 2 games. That's how I view it. That's what I think, but we will see. Time will tell. Now, a little preview of tonight. The Boston Celtics are trying to erase this narrative, or at least I think they are, and I think it's right that they should be. If they aren't, then maybe this shouldn't be their focus. But the narrative, and again, we're gonna touch on Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever, and why I really think Aliyah Boston needs to be the more of a focal point moving forward, just for this season. But we'll touch on that in a bit. I really think Boston needs to find a way, and it's not about silencing your critics, but Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown specifically need to find a way to step up and erase this narrative of they're not clutch or they can't or they melt when it counts the most. Because I think those two talking points are more than fair at this point. And this series that this playoff run so far does not give them a chance to kind of get rid of that shadow. And what do I mean exactly by that? So, who have the Boston Celtics played? They played a Miami Heat team that was down to second, third, fourth, fifth string rotations. Definitely, obviously, without Jimmy Butler. Then they played a Cleveland Cavaliers team that had been struggling with injuries all year long, got somewhat healthy toward the end, and then we all saw what happened there without being with a fully functional Donovan Mitchell in that lineup. So and I'm not one that puts an asterisk by a team or puts an asterisk by a playoff performance or by a championship ring. I'm not that. You can only beat who's in front of you. So if the Boston Celtics win the 2023-2024 championship, I wouldn't put an asterisk by it. But the same concerns remain. And the same doubts that I have of this nucleus of this team remain. So tonight, if they beat the Indiana Pacers, and as of at last I checked, Tyrese Halliburton is still questionable with that hamstring, I still won't be impressed. If they go on to sweep the Pacers, great. They probably should. Oh, and then I forgot to mention the New York Knicks would have been on the other hand. We all know what their season was like. So in my opinion, the Boston Celtics are in something of a lose-lose. If you win big, it's like, well, yeah, you probably should have. If you win close, it's well, how did it get close in the first place? And then if you lose tonight, open the floodgates to criticism. That is a no can do. That I can't go for that. Shout out Daryl Hall and Hall. Shout out Hall and Oates. So that is where I think we are with the Boston Celtics right now, and why like I don't think there's too much takeaway other than the Celtics either take care of business against a team that they really should, or Are they or good God, time to look for that panic button because the Indiana Pacers, a limited Indiana Pacers team, and by limited, I would 100% in my mind count the series if Tyrese Halliburton was closer to 100%. Because I like this Indiana Pacers team. Obviously, they're not as talented, especially toward the top, but this is a really resilient bunch. So let's see how game three unfolds. I'm excited for it. I'm really excited for game three in the Mavs T Wolves series. But overall, my skepticism about this Boston team, I think, will remain one way or another unless something really earth shattering happens. Now, let's move on. The Indiana Fever. They get their first win of the season against the Los Angeles Sparks. And now it's important to remember that this is a that I kind of love this saying. I kind of like this phrase, and I'll admit I overuse it, but I love the phrase of this team picked where they did for a reason, and I think that's appropriate for both of these sides. Throw the Washington Mystics in there too. If these three are going, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, and I'm kind of mixing things up here, so apologies for that. Try to stay focused, Gabriel. I know. Well, it's because we're on the it's because we're here on the Java Energy Hour, so I just have so much pepped up energy that I can't maintain focus. But we'll try to do our best for Jordan and for all the other viewers out there. But if you take the Washington Mystics, the Indiana Fever, and the Los Angeles Sparks, these are three bad teams. And at least for this season, I think it's safe to say that they will continue to be bad teams. Now, one of those teams has a potential generational player at the pro level in Caitlin Clark, and another one of those teams has someone who I have said has an Anthony Davis like impact trajectory in Cameron Brink and the Los Angeles Sparks. And the Washington Mystics are probably going to be vying for the number one draft pick. So I hope Paige Beckers likes DC. But, pardon me, but what am I saying with all this? Because there are only so many teams that any WNBA roster can play against, we're going to see a lot of the matchups a little more frequently. So on any given night, could the Washington Mystics pull off an upset win against, for example, the Las Vegas Aces? Sure. It's possible on anything can happen on an off night. But more often than not, I think if these three teams, the Washington Mystics, the Los Angeles Sparks, and the Indiana Fever, I think if they're going to pick up wins, it's largely going to be against each other. So, what was I impressed about from this Indiana Fever win? I liked how they got everyone more involved in the offense and how it didn't seem like they were trying to run the Iowa offense for Caitlin Clark. Now, in my opinion, they're still far too reliant on and hopeful that Caitlin Clark will be spectacular. And I've heard some people say that her teammates are laying her down, and specifically Aliyah Boston. I completely dispel that narrative. I completely disagree with that because it's so hard to get in rhythm. The one exception to this at the pro level who comes to mind for me, in terms of an obvious exception, is Kyrie Irving. Speaking of him from earlier, right? He's someone who Luka Doncic can control the game, can do his thing for three quarters, and Kyrie Irving can turn it on in the fourth, and it's like he's been hot the entire game. But for most players, they need to be involved. They need to get themselves into rhythm throughout the game, and at times play themselves through a slump. So when Caitlin Clark is out there and taking, I would say, more than 6 threes, and is just in general being as ball dominant, as ball centric as she has been, that's something that's not going to play well. That's something that's going to make it a little more difficult for Aliyah Boston, for example, for Kelsey Mitchell. So she's still, and in general, you want your shots attempted to at least match the amount of points scored. So she being Caitlin Clark took 14 shots last night, 9 threes, and she scored 11 points. For most, that would be considered an inefficient night. Now, contrast that to Aliyah Boston. She also took 14 shots, but she had 17 points. Not a great evening, but that's efficient. We can live with that. Mitchell, 14 shots, 18 points. We can live with that. But if you go 4 of 14 from the field, 2 of 9 from 3, and get 11 points, that's just too inefficient. Now, what did Caitlin Clark do well? Her vision was nice. She cleaned up the turnovers, only 2 turnovers. Love that. So I'm not saying that she needs to play like LeBron, in which LeBron notorious for early, he likes to try to get his teammates involved. He likes to kind of feel the pace of the game. I'm not saying Caitlin Clark needs to do that. But let's be honest, through the first 6 games, there have been times where she is forcing something that probably isn't there. And her teammates, they love her to death and they will defend her to the end. So this isn't about jealousy or anything like that, but it's hard for them to stay involved. It's hard for them to get in a rhythm when de facto they're watching Caitlin Clark do her thing more times than not. And I think we're seeing Caitlin Clark at this next level. Is she going to get hers like what she did on the final made 3? Yes. There will be times where she will look as great as what she can be. Absolutely. But we've also seen a lot of bad shot selections that she can make, but that's not the point. At the professional level, it's about trying to get the best shot for the team. And so sometimes is that your best player going one-on-one, taking advantage of a mismatch and just making something that is makeable for them? Sure. But at this point, I think we have to admit that the pro level defender and what other teams are throwing at Caitlin Clark is a little more than even she anticipated. So I would like to see a little more involvement. It was really beautiful when they got a two-man game going between Clark and Boston. I think that will open up things for Clark, and that will give her better looks. So then we go from 4 of 14 for 11 points to say, I don't know, 6 or 8 of 14. We're hovering closer to 18, 20 points. She won't be as fatigued throughout the season, and she'll be less frustrated, and her teammates will be able to get more involved and get in a rhythm and be able to bail Caitlin Clark out when necessary on evenings where she isn't shooting as well from 3. So in general, I would like to see moving forward 3 players have around the same shot attempts, 3 or 4 players having around the same shot attempts, and for all players, but Caitlin Clark especially, to stick to the rule of however many points you score, that's about how many attempted field goals that you should have had at least in the game. Now, moving forward, the Chicago Sky. I really am a fan of Angel Reese and everything that she's doing. On the court, spectacular. Really is taking advantage of the situation. I know that what's a successful season for them going to be looking like? Probably if they're hovering around 500. And tonight they play the Connecticut Sun. First of all, why is it the Connecticut Sun and not the Connecticut Suns? Kind of like what is it, Stanford Cardinal? So I don't understand that at all. But that's far beside the point. I really like how this Chicago Sky team is playing, and talk about two teams that have a sensational rookie, a rookie who's getting a lot of attention. But as of right now, there are two different approaches. So at times, is Angel Reese a focal point? Do they sometimes let her go to work down low in the post and do her thing? Yes. But there are also a number of possessions back to back to back where she doesn't see the ball unless it's her crashing the offensive glass, where the rest of the team is getting involved. And this helps her to not to have her usage rate be down, for her to pump up her other teammates, and just for the overall basketball product to be better, to be more sustainable. So I really like what the Chicago Sky is doing and how they are setting Angel Reese up to succeed. And then, and we'll close on this. I really love how Angel Reese is very much saying, "Hey, if I get a special perk, if someone wants me to come to their event, fine, but my teammates better be invited too. I'm not going anywhere without my teammates." Here we are on the Java Energy Hour, the number one show that lasts closer to 30 minutes. Here on the Curious Sports Pulse YouTube channel, and we will pour our coffee right in front of you as we give our take. But she made it known, I love my teammates. I anything I'm invited to, anything I'm involved with, my teammates are going to be there too. And I love that. I love that. And again, I'm not saying other players aren't doing that or wouldn't do that, but I just love how she came out and said that. And it's not lip service. By at least I don't interpret that. I don't interpret it that way. She means it. She's letting it be known. And I think that's also part of the reasons why the Chicago Sky, when you watch them play, you can tell the difference. Everyone has team unity. Everyone says we all need to play together. But it's one thing to just say that, and it's one thing when you turn on the game, when you watch the game, it's one thing to actually see it in how they play. And in my opinion, so far, the Chicago Sky, from all the teams that I just from all the teams I just mentioned, the Los Angeles Sparks, the Indiana Fever, and this team, the Chicago Spy, they embody team unity so far the best. Now, time to improve, or time to improve, room for improvement. There's plenty of time left in the season. For example, Caitlin Clark, we've seen she cut down her turnovers in the last game. Good. Uh, I think this is kind of the next step. The Chicago Sky, really fun product to watch. Really are playing together, really playing well as a team right now. So now, like I said, what does success look like for them? For sure, they have to be over 500. I think just getting a playoff win. I think anything else at this point would be asking for a little much just because of where other teams are and because of how early this Chicago Sky is in their process. That's how I view things now. Things might change, but as of right now, we are here May 25th. That's how I kind of view this Chicago team thing. And I think that would be fair. That'd be reasonable. And just to watch them continue to build off this so that next year you could say, okay, this team is ready to make a playoff push. So this year, I think is all about watching them play, watching them develop together, and continue to build the nucleus, continue to build the culture, and continue to build and play winning basketball so that in years to come, when we talk about the New York Liberty, when we talk about the Las Vegas Aces, we are then forced to include the Chicago Sky automatically in those conversations, just like when Candace Parker was on the team toward the later part of her playing day careers. But that's all the time we have for right now. Tune in later on to Provide the Spark at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We should have a couple of guests there. We'll be here on the YouTube. Also, we might make a couple of guest appearances later on Scoutcast. Again, if I'm not able to make it for whatever reason, still check out Erock on Twitter at Livengood, Liven, at Livengood09 on the Twitter. Check us out, CuriousSports.com, and at SportsPulse100. Appreciate all of you tuning in this morning. Have a great rest of your Saturday.